Hi, I'm Jo and I head up our self-build team here at New Heat. New Heat have over 30 years experience designing, supplying and supporting warm water underfloor heating and heat pump systems for our customers. We'd like to share the knowledge we've gained over the last 3 decades. So I'm here to talk you through everything you need to know when it comes to underfloor heating. An underfloor heating system is essentially made up of strong and flexible pipework that's installed under or within the floor with warm water running through it. The water is supplied to the underfloor heating by a heat source, like a boiler or a heat pump, and it's fed into the manifold. The manifold controls the flow of water to the underfloor heating pipework and regulates the temperature. This warm water then heats the floor, transferring a gentle and even heat into the room above. There are a couple of common worries we hear about underfloor heating all of the time. The first is, will it leak? But you really don't need to worry about this. The pipework used is manufactured to high industry standards. It's incredibly strong and there are no joins that can compromise it. The underfloor heating is also pressure tested before being covered, so you can be 100% sure that there is no damage before laying floor coverings. Another question is, what if it all goes wrong and it's buried in the floor? Again, this isn't something to worry about. All of the serviceable parts and plumbing joints are located at the manifold above the floor, so they're easily accessible. One of the biggest benefits of underfloor heating is how it feels, because it provides an even, comfortable radiant heat throughout the whole room. Not just in one particular area like radiators, where the temperature drop from one side of the room to the other can be as much as 5 degrees in large areas. And it's a heat you'll feel through your feet and upward throughout your body. Hard floor coverings feel warm, which is quite luxurious. Speak to somebody who's got underfloor heating and they will never go back to radiators again. Underfloor heating gently warms the whole home, and because the floor is such a large surface area, it can use much lower water temperatures than radiators to heat a home. This makes underfloor heating around 25% more efficient than radiators and up to 40% more efficient when paired with a heat pump. All down to not having to heat the water to such a high temperature in order to heat the space. Another big bonus is not having to mount radiators on walls, removing any exposed hot surfaces and freeing up valuable space. It's far easier to plan large, open plan layouts without needing to accommodate radiators, especially when large bifold doors and windows are such a key feature in many new homes and renovations. Underfloor heating works really differently to radiators. With underfloor heating, heat gently radiates evenly across the entire floor surface, meaning you'll feel comfortably warm wherever you are. Despite their name, radiators work by convection and do not actually radiate heat like underfloor heating. Instead, they heat the air immediately around them, which rises to the ceiling and then falls as it cools, producing air currents that move dust around and cause drafts. And because radiators are only mounted in certain locations, the room will often have a huge temperature differential, with some areas hot and other parts cool. Efficiency is another major win for underfloor heating over radiators. The larger surface area of underfloor heating means that it can use much lower temperature water to get the room to a comfortable heat. Conventional radiators, on the other hand, need very hot water to blast out enough heat, which is why they often become too hot to touch. The lower water temperatures of underfloor heating is what make it around 25% more efficient than radiators when using a boiler, and up to 40% more efficient when paired with a heat pump, which thrives when producing lower temperatures in a well-insulated property. Another difference with underfloor heating is that it can be completely designed, tailored to the property. You create individually temperature-controlled zones, so each room in the house can be easily controlled and set to a temperature and schedule that suits you. Underfloor heating can be installed in many different ways. There's a system for every scenario. But you can boil it down to 3 or 4 main types of installation. Screed systems are the most common and would typically be used in new build properties. This is where the underfloor heating is embedded in the floor screed, which you are generally laying in this type of project anyway. Because of its weight, this would usually be a ground floor solution. One of the traditional myths about underfloor heating is that you can't have underfloor heating upstairs. but this simply isn't true. Thanks to the range of systems available, you absolutely can. The underfloor heating pipe work is fitted between the joists of the floor, with metal plates transferring the heat to the floor deck above. You can also install underfloor heating on top of an existing floor, and this brings us on to the third main type of installation, low-profile systems for renovations. There are now a number of specially designed underfloor heating systems that sit over the top of either an existing solid floor or a structural deck over joists with minimal height build-up. These can be as low as 15mm. Finally, it's also worth mentioning electric underfloor heating, which is an option for certain situations. This is different to warm water underfloor heating, as you have a cable running beneath the floor that heats up when powered by electricity. The big downside to electric is that it's much more expensive to run than a warm water system, so it's only really suitable for a small single area, like a bathroom or a small kitchen, for example. So let's go through some of the most popular underfloor heating systems that we have for each type of build. For the ground floor of a new build property, screed is the most common underfloor heating system by far. This is because it fits really neatly into the build schedule, and it's likely that you'll be pouring a screed anyway, so it's easy and affordable to incorporate the underfloor heating. So here I've got a cross-section of the typical screed system which I'll run through. First of all, a layer of insulation is laid over the concrete slab to comply with building regulations and stop downwards heat loss. This is followed by a polythene membrane, which will stop any reaction between the screed and the insulation. It's worth noting that sometimes builders will lay the insulation beneath the concrete, but you want the insulation laid on top of the concrete to create a thermal break between the slab and the underfloor heating system. So it's only heating the room above and not the concrete below. Once the membrane is down, our clip track is then fixed to the insulation, and this is what will hold the underfloor heating pipes in place. Your chosen screed is then added on top. The type of screed used will depend on the size of the installation. For areas smaller than 50 square metres, a hand-mixed screed is the most common choice, as it is cheaper than the initial cost of pumping a liquid screed. Due to its naturally more varied consistency, hand-mixed screed is typically thicker at around 65mm compared to a pumped liquid screed, resulting in longer drying times. We usually say it takes about a day's drying time for every millimetre for the first 50mm and 2 days for every millimetre above 50. So that's typically up to about an 80-day drying time for a hand-mixed screed, before floor coverings can go on top. For areas larger than 50 square metres or the whole ground floor of a property, it's usually more cost effective to choose a pumped liquid screed. It's also slimmer at about 50mm and tends to dry quicker. This type of screed is delivered by a lorry and mechanically pumped over the underfloor heating pipe on the day. Clip track will need to be installed at half-metre intervals instead of 1 metre intervals with a pumped screed to keep it secure due to the force of the pumped liquid screed, which can push things out of place. Once the screed is dry, floor coverings can go down. With a hand-mixed screed, a self-levelling compound will be needed to make it flat enough for thinner floor coverings, such as luxury vinyl floor tiles. Liquid screeds dry much flatter, so floor coverings can go straight on top, which is another advantage. First floors, or joisted floors, are one of the places people often used to think that they couldn't put underfloor heating. It's one of the most common misconceptions, but you absolutely can, and there's different ways of doing it. Our clipper plate system has been designed for joisted floors. The way it works is that 2 runs of the underfloor heating pipe are held in this aluminium tray. This is showing joists at 600mm centres with 2 runs of plate. If your joists are at 400mm centres, you'll just have the 1 run of plate. You can either install this from below, between the joists, as shown here after the floor deck has been laid, or from above with the plate straddling the joists before the floor deck goes down. This system will work with traditional timber joists, I-beam joists, and even posi web joists. Once the pipe is in place, all that's left to do is push up the mineral wool acoustic insulation between the joists, which is a building regulation requirement. This will also ensure as much of the heat as possible goes upwards into the room above. Clipper plate is ideal in timber framed houses, where frame suppliers will need to install the upper structural deck for the structural integrity of the construction, where your only option to avoid height build-up at this point is to install from below. It's obviously much safer installing from below than from above. Also, it means that building work going on in the rooms above can continue, helping keep everything on schedule. Tri-panel is a pre-formed panel that uses heat spreader plates and can be installed in between floor joists. This is a system we'd recommend if installing above an unheated area because of its slightly higher heat output than clipper plate. It can fit between 400 or 600mm centred joists, but is only compatible with solid timber joists. This is because you've got a 9mm ply deck resting on battens fixed to the joist to support the system above. And then you've got your layer of insulation. There's a 25mm polystyrene tray, which will need to be flush or even about a millimetre proud of the top of the joist, so that when the structural floor deck goes down over the top, you've got a really good contact between the metal and the decking above for that heat transfer upwards. The wide range of underfloor heating systems for renovations are probably one of the biggest surprises to most people. A few years ago, you wouldn't have been able to put underfloor heating in a renovation because of the height build-up a traditional screed would add to the floor. You'd have had to consider the cost and disruption of digging up floors. Now that's changed massively, and we've been real leaders in this, and our discreet low-pro range is designed specifically to be installed over the top of existing floors with minimal height build-up. Our slimmest product actually allows you to put in a warm water underfloor heating system with as little as a 15mm build-up over an existing floor, which is tiny. It's about the size of a 5p piece. So a really minimal height build-up with no need for a structural deck on top. Our low-pro systems are really high-performing and responsive, so deliver all of the benefits you'd expect of underfloor heating in a renovation scenario. Before we get into the products, I'd just like to talk about some considerations when it comes to adding underfloor heating to existing properties. One consideration is downwards heat loss. If installing low-pro over an existing concrete floor, adding an insulation layer is not required because ground temperatures remain fairly static at around 12 degrees all year round. This results in roughly a 6% downwards heat loss, which we can factor into your system design. There is actually a clause in Part L building regs that takes into account the financial viability of doing works. If it takes longer than about 15 years to recoup your costs, it's not considered financially viable, and the cost of digging up an existing concrete floor could take up to 200 years to recoup. But if you're installing low-pro over a joisted or suspended timber ground floor, it's a very different story. In this scenario, with a vented space below, your downwards heat losses can be as much as 45%. In this type of installation, you will absolutely need to insulate between the joists. One way of doing this is to lift the floor deck, put a net across the floor and roll out mineral wool insulation between the joists before replacing the deck, ready for the low-pro system to go down. We'd insist on this. So this is our low-pro 10 system. It's a 15mm system that goes over the existing floor deck, either a structural deck over joists or directly over a concrete floor. The low-pro 10 system uses a 10mm pipework, which sits in the 15mm pre-routed fibre gypsum board to hold it in place. The boards are 600 by 1200mm and come in two types to accommodate the pipe. One with curved runs for the turns and one with straight runs for the middle areas. At the edge of the room, where the pipework runs back to the manifold, a piece of castellated panel is used so that there is the freedom to route the pipes as needed. This is filled up with some self-levelling compound over the top, flush with the top of the board. Once that's done and dry, you can put your floor coverings on top. One thing worth noting is that if you are going for a thinner floor covering, like a luxury vinyl tile, this system would require a 6 to 10mm skim of self-levelling compound to get an ultra-flat surface, which means you may want to consider going for our slightly thicker low-pro max system that dries level enough for luxury vinyl tiles without additional preparation. Engineered boards can be laid directly over the top. Tiles will just require a decoupling membrane between the low-pro system and the tile. And finally, if you're using a carpet, you just need to grout over the channels so you wouldn't feel any lumps and bumps. Low-pro 10 can give you a really nice, ultra-slim underfloor heating system. Low-pro Max is our highest heat output underfloor heating system, thanks to the highly conductive self-levelling compound, which makes it really popular in renovations. It's also the option we'd recommend if you're retrofitting a heat pump for this reason. It's just 22mm thick, which is a little more than the 15mm low-pro 10 system. Low-pro Max uses a 10mm pipework that sits in a pre-formed castellated panel with a self-levelling compound poured on top. The castellated panels have a peel-off adhesive layer and stick directly down to the concrete or structural deck below. We supply a primer to get the floor deck ready for the panels to go down. The edges of the panels actually overlap to fully tank the floor and hold the liquid self-levelling compound. You're looking at 150mm spacings between the pipe to maximise heat output, which is really important to get a nice even heat distribution across the floor. Once the pipe is down, the included self-levelling compound is poured over the pipework. The compound is specially formulated so we know exactly how it reacts and performs as part of an underfloor heating system. This is supplied in 25 kilogram bags to be mixed and poured on site. If you're doing an area larger than about 30 or 40 square metres, it's probably better to get a screeding contractor to mix and pump the compound, or it'll be a pretty massive and tiring job. The self-levelling compound is really quick drying, and after about 8 or 9 hours you can walk on it. And after only 72 hours it's fully cured and ready for floor finishes to be laid over the top. So it's a really quick installation. Far quicker than a traditional screed system where you're waiting weeks for it to dry. And one last big advantage of the Low Pro Max compound is that it dries fully flat and can have thinner floor coverings laid directly over the top. You just need to be careful of the floor temperature with some of the more sensitive floor coverings, like vinyl, which is why we provide floor sensors to protect those from any potential damage. It's a great system, quick to install, low profile and really high performing. And that's Low Pro Max. The key to an effective underfloor heating system is a fully optimised design that takes into account the building and floor plans, as well as insulation levels and the fabric of the property, such as window sizes and ceiling heights, to calculate room by room heat losses. All of these factors will be used to determine the right system or systems for the project and how it should be installed, producing bespoke installation drawings. It's really important to understand that underfloor heating is different to radiators. It's a low temperature heating system and it needs a thorough and thought through design to guarantee it will heat the home perfectly. When New Heat designs a system, we take into account anything and everything that can affect the performance in each room, including pipe spacing, manifold locations and environmental factors. We even make sure we know the floor coverings in every room, as they will also impact the performance of the system and need to be accounted for in the design to ensure performance is optimised. For example, you might have 2 rooms next to each other in your house that are exactly the same size but have very different requirements. One room might have 3 external walls and bifold doors, and the room next to it, whilst exactly the same size, may only have a small window. These rooms are going to have very different requirements in terms of heat output from the underfloor heating, which is why this approach of heat loss calculations must be bespoke to each room. So whether you decide to work with New Heat or go with another company, it's really important to make sure that you're confident that they're going through that design process to give you that full service and tailored system, complete with underfloor heating layout diagrams, so you can see exactly how that system has been designed for your project. It also gives you that complete peace of mind that you know that system is going to perform for you. The way we design and our confidence in the thousands of designs we've supplied over the last 30 years is why we're able to offer lifetime technical support for all of our customers. Warm water underfloor heating can cost as little as £800 for a 20 square metre room, but it is important to remember that price varies by project. The exact underfloor heating cost per square metre will vary depending on the most suitable system for the property. As a general rule, a standard screed underfloor heating system for a new build project is often around 30% cheaper than a retrofit solution, where more materials will be required. Screed underfloor heating, like our clip track system, is a cost-effective solution for new build properties that fits neatly into the build schedule. Installation is quick, which helps keep costs to a minimum. If we take a typical self-build project, say a detached 3-bedroomed home with a 100 square metre floor area, you could expect a bespoke screed underfloor heating system to cost approximately £3,000 or £30 a square metre, excluding the screed. From us, this would include a unique system design tailored to the property with the highest quality components and lifetime technical support. Of course, installation costs would be on top of this. These are trickier to estimate, as every installer varies, but you will need a qualified heating engineer or plumber to ensure the system is installed correctly. If we consider a new build with a total floor area of 100 square metres and choose an installer who charges £30 to £40 per hour, you could expect the installation to cost roughly £1,200 to £1,500 on top of the system cost. Installing underfloor heating in a renovation always costs more, and this is mostly because far more components and parts are required, like pre-routed boards or castellated panels to hold the heating pipework. If we take an average Victorian terraced house as our example, with a downstairs floor area of 60 square metres, a bespoke low Pro 10 system would cost in the region of £75 a square metre. This would include everything required to install the underfloor heating so that it's ready for the chosen floor finishes. as well as a bespoke system design to ensure everything works to the highest performance. And of course, you'd get peace of mind with our customer support for the entire lifetime of the system. Again, installation costs would need to be factored in on top of this and would vary depending on the exact work involved, likely to be somewhere between £1,500 and £2,000. What about running costs? Well, a well-designed warm water underfloor heating system will be affordable to run. It's impossible to give figures as each home and how we like to heat it is different. But you can expect underfloor heating to be around 25% more efficient than radiators when using a gas boiler and up to 40% when using a heat pump. So savings can also be made on heating bills. Electric is a different story though, and can cost as much as 3 times more to run than water underfloor heating, which is why it's best suited to small spaces just to take the chill off floors rather than a primary heating system for a home. Something that we get asked a lot is whether a particular floor covering will be okay for underfloor heating. And usually the answer is yes. Most floor coverings are suitable, so you can choose the flooring to suit the look and feel of your home. The key is making sure these are installed correctly and also warmed correctly during everyday use. This is something our design process takes care of, making sure that whether you have a carpet or engineered wood, your underfloor heating will be optimised to work efficiently and without damaging your floor covering. We often get asked which floor covering is the best, and the easiest way to think about it is on a sliding scale. A natural stone or ceramic tile is always going to be the best possible covering as it heats up and holds onto the heat. It gives you that kind of thermal mass as screed does, so this works really well. Wood can also be used, but we'd recommend an engineered wood rather than a solid timber board, as it doesn't have the moisture content that is present in solid wood. With an engineered board, you're much less likely to get warping. Solid wood boards can be used, but they must be completely seasoned to avoid movement. Vinyl floors transfer heat well, and many people are now choosing luxury vinyl tiles as a floor covering for underfloor heating. In some cases, we might need to factor in maximum temperatures to prevent any damage, which we also do with engineered wood. But this would all be taken care of in the design process, and you'd be provided with floor sensors to protect the floor finish. The biggest surprise when it comes to floor coverings is the carpet is compatible with underfloor heating. But as you'd expect, a thick carpet with a thick underlay will act as an insulating layer and prevent the heat getting through. Carpet and underlay should have a combined TOG rating no higher than 2.5 for a boiler system and 1.5 for a heat pump system, as any more will insulate the underfloor heating from above and prevent a good heat transfer. Most carpet manufacturers now specify if their products are compatible with underfloor heating, so it shouldn't be difficult to find a suitable match. Again, we factor in your floor coverings when we design your system, so any additional considerations will be taken care of. Underfloor heating is really controllable thanks to how it's designed. It's split into zones, usually with each zone being a room. This allows you to set your underfloor heating to suit your lifestyle, with independent temperatures for different rooms. You can set each room up as you need, using the programmable thermostat or the New Heat app, if you've chosen Smart Control, to set the temperatures to suit you. This is great for making sure you're not wasting energy, heating guest bedrooms or other areas of the home that aren't being used often. We'd always recommend using a setback temperature when controlling underfloor heating. This allows it to maintain the desired temperature as efficiently as possible, turning on occasionally to keep the heat topped up. Some thermostats, like our Neostats, offer a very clever feature that learns the amount of time required to warm the room to the correct temperature based on the time it took the previous day. This means that as the seasons change and days get colder, your underfloor heating system will adapt and respond efficiently each time without you needing to reprogram all of the thermostats. Thermostats also pick up on other heat sources you might be using. For example, a log burner being used will mean any rooms receiving additional heat will automatically dial back underfloor heating to stay at the right temperature, meaning you're not wasting energy. Other rooms that aren't really benefiting from the log burner, such as upstairs bedrooms, will carry on running the underfloor heating. Paired with a NeoHub, these thermostats can be controlled via your smartphone using the app, and even have a geolocation feature where the heating will turn on once you get within a certain distance of your home. So it's warm for you by the time you get there. So, that's all you need to know about underfloor heating, or a good starter at least. Thank you for watching, and I really hope it was helpful. The most important thing to take away is that underfloor heating can be installed in most properties. but a good design is key. By factoring in the property type and its heat losses, it will make selecting the right system simple. Then the design will make for a smooth installation and guarantee its performance. If you have any questions at all or would like to talk to us about your specific project, our team is always happy to help. You can contact us through our website or email us at nu-heat.co.uk.